You know, sometimes I do like to throw a curveball in there once in a while. We make a ton of videos on this YouTube channel talking about the Buffalo Sabres and things that they've been doing improperly. You know, trade negotiations, signings, and all that stuff. We've had our fair share of trashing on the Buffalo Sabres in these conversations in the past, year and a bit, pretty much. And for the most part, a lot of it is somewhat warranted because there are some really bad decisions that either the Sabres coaching staff makes or the management decides to make, and some weird things going on with trades like Jack Eichel and the surgery, for example. But despite that fact, I've honestly had a pretty big soft spot for the Buffalo Sabres in my hockey lifetime. Sure, a lot of that does have to do with the fact that I am a Canucks fan and 1970 expansion bros reunite, but also because I kind of just do want to see the Sabres succeed, and it's like, dude, we've been making videos about the Sabres and how good they're going to be, spanning back to 2017, 2018, so the fact that they're still this bad does kind of hurt me in the inside a little bit as well, mostly because even though it's fun to laugh at the Sabres, you cannot help but feel somewhat bad for the fans and the players and the team who have suffered the most, etc. So when the Sabres go out there and they do something that I think is actually great, like, for example, trading Rasmus Ristolainen for a package that included a first-round pick to the Philadelphia Flyers. I made a video kind of trashing on Philly because, in my opinion, Ristolainen is not worth the first, but praising the heck out of the Sabres because, hey, you got a first for Ristolainen. The Reinhart trade package, while not the biggest thing in the world because it is an RFA, and they were essentially trading the signing rights to this player and not the player himself, I get it. That was a good move because you took advantage of what you had and you really pried out from the Florida Panthers what it was that you wanted. So when the Buffalo Sabres go out there and they do things that I think are actually pretty good, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to praise the heck out of them because, man, these contract re-signings over here, in my opinion at least, are some really good value deals for players who have so much more to show for the next 3 seasons. Yesterday, the Buffalo Sabres announced they had signed forward Casey Mittelstadt as well as defenseman Henri Jokiharju to 3-year contracts with $2.5 million AAVs. And yeah, you heard that right. They're the same contracts for 2 different players over here, but these 2 guys, in my opinion, just based off of the way that they're able to play and what they could be in the next few years, could really outplay these $2.5 million AAV contracts as soon as, let's just say, next season. Casey Mittelstadt, if we go over the entire profile over here, he was the Buffalo Sabres' 8th overall pick at the 2017 NHL Entry Draft, 22 years old, 6'1", 198. He was always this Patrick Kane, soft hands, kind of shifty forward who had some really good skill in the Minnesota high school leagues. He carried over that skill and the point production ability in the NCAA as well as the World Juniors and really put himself on the map so much to the point that a lot of people thought he would be better than Elias Pettersson. Now, Elias Pettersson is not really in that same boat anymore, but Casey Mittelstadt has indeed had a pretty rough path in the NHL so far. You can see the point production right here. He had a fantastic start to his NHL career in 2017-18 when he made his debut and he was under a point per game, but the year after that was a lot lower in terms of point production. You give it a few more years, he takes a little bit more of a point production hit. He goes down to the AHL where he is pretty good over there, and in 2020-2021, he wraps up a year where he has 41 games played, 10 goals, 12 assists, and 22 total points. Now, you take a look at that on paper and you say, wow, in a full season, he would have been on pace for 44 points, 20 goals, and 22 assists. That's not bad, right? And I'll tell you, yeah, that's not bad, especially for a guy who is on a 40-point pace and who's going to be making $2.5 million for the next 3 seasons at the ages of 23, 24, and 25. But what if I told you that the most important event of the Sabres 2021 season plays into this as well? The most important event, in my opinion, was the Ralph Krueger firing, and a lot of people will point at many different players in the Sabres and say, wow, look at these guys, they improved so much after Krueger was fired. Dahlin was probably the biggest one over there, but another one was Casey Mittelstadt. Casey Mittelstadt had 17 points in his last 22 games played after Ralph Krueger was fired. And if you take a look at that, I mean, that's under a point per game. If you do the math, there were some posts on Reddit and Twitter, all over social media, talking about the mathematics behind it. Casey Mittelstadt, if you just isolate his Coronato play, was on pace for 63 points in a full 82-game season. And this is a guy who really just came out here and played so much better than $2.5 million at the end of the year. Sure, he wasn't all too great under Kruger, but a lot of people weren't really all too great under Ralph Kruger and the system that he deployed for the Buffalo Sabres. But for Casey Mittelstadt himself, he really started to find his game a lot more after the coach was fired and after they brought in Coronato. So if you're able to hold on to that skill, you're able to hold on to the mojo that he built at the end of the year and say, okay, do that again, but we'll give you $2.5 million for the next 3 seasons to do it. To me, that's a really good contract, and if he's able to even be, I don't know, a 20, 30-point guy, you're really getting value there because $2.5 million really isn't a lot. He'll still be an RFA when this contract is done, too, so you still have some control over him once this contract does expire. Over onto Henri Jokiharju, though, let's talk about him for a little bit, because he's a guy who was also taken in that 2017 NHL Entry Draft. He was actually taken 29th overall at the end of the draft by the Chicago Blackhawks. He was traded over to the Sabres in the Alex Nylander trade. Nylander, by the way, a 2016 top NHL prospect. But Henri Jokiharju is a right-handed defenseman, 6 feet 194, who is a really good point producer for the Portland Winterhawks in the WHL. I remember seeing the highlights and the tape of him just absolutely obliterating WHL goalies and doing well at the World Juniors as well, despite being an underage player. And he really got himself into a position where, playing for the Sabres, I mean, sure, he wasn't producing the lights out, he wasn't getting a whole bunch of points, but he was still one of the more stable guys on that blue line, and he's only 22 years old, so he has himself a boatload of time, just like Casey Mittelstadt, to really carve out their NHL legacies right here. Jokiharju is a guy that I've always been a really big fan of. He's mobile, he can skate through the neutral zone, he's got some really good skating ability. It's just with the Blackhawks and the direction that they were going down, you didn't really have too much of a fit there for Jokiharju long term, especially now with the Seth Joneses and all of them on the team, the Murphys and all that. You have yourselves a pretty good established path, I guess you would say, with the Buffalo Sabres compared to the Chicago Blackhawks. And hey, just like Casey Mittelstadt, the contract's 3 years long, it's only $2.5 million. You're not going to go out there and expect Jokiharju to 100% fill up the Ristolainen minutes that he's leaving on the table. If he can do it, then great, but if he's not able to, then okay. He's only making $2.5 million, so it's not like he is a guy who's going to be the biggest mover of the bus over there on your blue line. 3 years is really good because by the time this contract expires, he'll also be an RFA, meaning that you have yourselves 2 guaranteed years of Jokiharju and Mittelstadt still trying to figure themselves out, and then in the last year of their contract in 2024, who knows if Eichel is still on the team? He's not going to be on the team, let's be real here. Who knows how good Dylan Cousins is after a few years? Who knows how good Jack Quinn is making his debut? If the team is a lot better then it gives the opportunity for guys like Jokiharju and Mittelstadt to get paid in 2024. But these contracts right here are really setting them up to saying, okay, show us what you got. These are your prove-it deals right here. You're not going to get a boatload of money till you're 25 years old, and that's okay, but we want to see what you can do. And the Sabres are in a position to really let these guys go out there and show that off in a system that hopefully is a lot better than Ralph Kruger's. Coronato is here, and I really want to see how Casey Mittelstadt does playing 82 games, because he hasn't done that yet. He's gone out there and played, let's take a look at the numbers right here, 6 games, 77 games, 31 games, 41 games. He has not played a full season yet, and a lot of that does have to do with health, up and down, injury concerns, and overall development of play as well. So, next season, the year after that, who knows, he's got 3 years on his contract, he might be able to get that full 82-game mark then, and if the system with Coronato is working, then who knows how many points this guy could get. He was on pace for 63 under Coronato in a 22-game sample size. Does he get 40 points? Does he get 45, maybe 50 points? As for Jokiharju, hey, I want to see this guy go out there and eventually find a way to replace that Ristolainen hole. He's not going to do it right away, as I said, but sometime down the line, you replace one Finnish right-handed defenseman with another one, and you really allow those minutes to be distributed to the rest of your lineup. So, 3 years, 2.5 AAV for both Mittelstadt and Jokiharju. I love these deals. Sure, if these guys become fantastic, in 2024 you're going to have to pay them a lot. But the thing is, we don't know if that's guaranteed. So a prove-it deal like this, 3 prove-it years on the contract at 2.5 AAV for both of these players right here, I think that's really good value if these guys play to the standard that we know that they're capable of. And I like this a lot. So talk to me in the comments if you agree, if you think these are good moves. Do you think they're busts? Do you think these players are a lot more than $2.5 million worth? Talk to me in the comments. What do you think about these 2 contract signees by the Sabres? I hope you enjoyed this Rosén. and bye.